Hello and welcome to the Literary Lair. Do you ever see a book's cover and without even knowing what the book is about, you want it? You don't know if it's good or bad or if you'll even like it, but you know that whatever it is, it will be utterly amazing. Let's talk about Alternate Warriors. Look at the cover. No, just look at it. What is that? That, my friends, is Gandhi dressed as Rambo. Mahatma Gandhi dressed as John Rambo. Gandhi dressed as Rambo. I saw the cover on a Tumblr post and I knew I had to own this book. I knew that regardless of the contents inside, it was going to make a great review. And I think I was right. Essentially, this book is everything I love rolled into one. It's a book of alternate history short stories featuring some of my favorite historical and notable people, like Albert Einstein or Mark Twain, but reimagined as warriors who fight battles instead of being scientists or authors or diplomats. It's awesome. I love the figures that they portray in the book, and I love alternate history, and the stories are really well written. They even get some really famous writers in the mix. So, let's get straight to it, and look inside Alternate Warriors. The cover is Gandhi dressed as Rambo. There's nothing else to say, just bask in its glory. Rambo Gandhi. There's also some what-if scenarios that end up being stories in the book on the back. Let me read you the one that convinced me that this was going to be amazing. What if Jesus Christ gathered his disciples and handed out swords? How can I not read it after reading that? Frigging Sword Jesus! Let's get to the book. Okay, so I'm picking a bunch of stories to look at because if I summarized every story in the entire book, we'd be here forever. And besides, if I don't look at all of them, I can come back to this sometime in the future. And believe me, I want to give all of these stories the time to shine that they deserve. But we're going to start with Because Thou Lovest the Burning Ground, which is the Gandhi story. Because of all of them, we have to look at this one first. I'm just going to assume that you know who Gandhi is, but on the off chance that you don't, Gandhi was the leader of the Indian independence movement and a huge figure who helped free India from the British during the early 20th century. He is also known for his stance on non-violence, in which he did hunger strikes and marches, but never did anything except peaceful protests. Let's see what the alternate Gandhi is like. Mohandas Gandhi is taking a long journey, traveling home to see his son, who was born while he was away studying at college. On his way, he runs into an old man named Jafir. Not that one. That's not even the same name. Anyway, Jafir starts following Gandhi and talking to him, and Gandhi hopes that if he keeps a brisk pace, the old guy will tire out and leave him alone, since he wants solitude on his trip. However, Jafir keeps up with him. The old man asks about his education ideas and offers Gandhi some food, which he accepts. After that, Gandhi begins to open up to Jafir, telling him about his issues at school. You see, Gandhi isn't visiting home, he is returning home, since he's leaving school. It seems that the classes are taught in English, and Gandhi is having trouble learning, since, he's at a school in India, so you'd think they'd be teaching classes in the most spoken language in India. But no, and so Gandhi can't learn because he doesn't understand it and the teachers move too fast for him to figure it out. Gandhi thinks that's pretty unfair, and to be honest, it is, and Jafir mentions that it's another weapon of a conqueror. Gandhi tells him that he wants to be a doctor and has been since his father became ill, but a medical education costs too much. Jafar balks at the amount, saying that he's spent more than that into his lifetime. Then he looks into the air and asks Gandhi to identify if it's a bird flying or a kite, and when Gandhi turns around, Jafar attacks him. "Quickly, grab your M60 and blast him!" Jafar lets go when Gandhi fights back, unfortunately without an M60, and Jafar says that he's killed the weak boy but has spared the man who fought back, and reveals that he's the priest of a cult and that Kali will grant Gandhi great power, which Gandhi accepts. I'm starting to think Rambo Gandhi isn't going to happen. Anyway, he tells his family he's becoming a messenger and goes with Jafar to become initiated into the cult. Jafar tells him that the rules of the cult are that they can't kill women or leave witnesses. So if someone is with a woman, they're spared. They find a traitor and they go in for the kill and bury the body. They take his horse to sell it and his money, but burn the rest as to leave no evidence behind. But after that, Jafar confesses to Gandhi that he had lost faith once and let a bunch of his fellow cult members be jailed and killed, since he cooperated with the British. But he thanks Gandhi for allowing him to go back to his religion, and the two of them continue their murderous rampages. Later on, Jafar dies suddenly in a horse accident, and Gandhi is free to return to his life, where he uses his newfound wealth to become a doctor. Years later, there's a shooting, and Gandhi goes in to help the people, learning that British soldiers had just walked up to a peaceful crowd and began firing. Gandhi tries to save the people, but there's not much he can do. This causes him to snap, and he decides that he's going to go Paul Kersey on the British and take revenge for the death of his people. He builds up a new cult, and the story ends as he goes to take revenge on the British. The next story is the Vatican outfit. This one is about Pope John Paul I, an Italian-born pope who was chosen and suddenly died 33 days after taking the papacy in 1978. This story takes an interesting alternate take and tries to explain why he died, suggesting that it might have been foul play. Let's take a look. The story opens up positing that many powerful underworld figures had a lot to lose from John Paul's papacy and that his death was considered foul play. Then we meet Vito, a mobster who was sent by his boss to Vatican City to check in on the Pope. You see, the Pope is going after some bad people, and Mr. Corvino, Vito's boss, wants to make sure that the Pope is okay. Vito's nephew Angelo is a priest who works directly for the Pope in Vatican City, and that's Vito's direct line to the Pope. He goes to meet with Angelo and tells Angelo that he believes that the Pope is going to be whacked out. Angelo is in disbelief and is in even more of it when he tells him that some of the Pope's closest people are in on the whacking. They meet with the Pope, who is also in disbelief that he's going to be killed. That is, until Vito checks his pills and feeds one of them to a cat who summarily dies. The Pope starts to listen to Vito, although he is still apprehensive about working with the mob, but Vito tells him that there's nothing to worry about because Mr. Corvino is a good Catholic man and the Pope's enemies are his enemies. The Pope tries to just forgive and forget, but after his toilet is rigged with plastic explosives, he realizes that Vito's way is the only way. Pope John Paul I calls up one of his subordinates, and I shit you not, starts talking to him like he's Don Vito Corleone. The Gandhi story disappointed me, but when I read this one, I knew that the book was totally worth it for some of the dialogue in it. I don't even want to read any of it because I can't do it justice, but screw it, I'm going to read the lines. So here's the scam, Johnny. I don't like the way you've been handling your branch of the outfit. The outfit, you know, the Holy Roman Church. He took a deep breath and got tough. You ain't been following orders, Johnny, and that makes me mad. What's more is you've been ignoring all my messages, and that makes me hurt. And I don't think you want me to be mad and hurt, Johnny, 'cause then I get mean. And do you know what happens when the boss of this outfit gets mean? People get whacked. I ain't saying it's gonna be you, Johnny. But then again, I also ain't saying that it ain't. I am dead serious. This is the greatest story ever to be put to paper. I don't even think Sword Jesus tops this. And that's essentially the rest of the story. The Pope becomes a mafia don. It ends with Mr. Corvino and Vito getting ready for a gang war between the Catholic Church and the Italian Mafia, since they got too greedy, and Corvino and Vito made a vital mistake. They taught the Pope everything they knew, and now he doesn't need them anymore. The third story we'll be looking at is The Firebringers. Though I wasn't originally going to do it since the title seemed a little boring, but once I saw the author, I knew that I had to give it a chance. You see, the author of this story is David Gerrold, who you may remember as the man who wrote one of the most well-known Star Trek episodes, The Trouble with Tribbles, and one of the more tolerable episodes of the 5th season of Sliders, New Gods for Old. And this story doesn't just focus on one prominent figure, it focuses on several. The story is about a bunch of famous actors from the golden age of Hollywood, but instead of acting, they work for the military during World War II, and are working on a mission to drop a bomb on one of America's enemies. Let's check it out. The story opens up with a pilot, James Stewart, yes, that one, although we don't find out his identity until later on, preparing to fly a plane containing a powerful bomb made by doctors Laurie, Karloff, and Lugosi. He goes to watch 2 ordnance officers, Stan Laurel and Ollie Hardy, give instructions while Bogey, the bombardier, chews on an unlit cigar. Bogey is putting on a tough guy attitude, but Stewart thinks that it's because it's his finger on the trigger for the bomb. As the bomb is loaded onto the plane, they give a set of keys to Bogey, and another is set aside for Colonel Peck. While they wait for Colonel Peck, Stewart gives backstory on the bomb. It's the atom bomb, or close equivalent, and they're going to drop it. He makes reference to President Cooper and Secretary of War Capra, who want America's enemies crushed. Stewart tries to relax while waiting, but can't escape Lieutenant Bob Hope's comedy routine. General Gable and General Donlevy show up and bring Colonel Reagan and Colonel Peck out, and they prepare to leave, with Captain Fonda giving them some words of wisdom before they fly out to their target, Berlin, Germany. Peck and Stewart talk on the way there, and Gerald even manages to write in Jimmy Stewart's voice, which is damn impressive. As they all converse, Peck begins to have second thoughts, since Berlin has a lot of innocent civilians, and Reagan reveals that he's under orders to take over if Peck can't complete the mission. Peck tells them that while they're under orders, the bomb could set a dangerous precedent to start an atomic war, and Reagan begins to take the command away from Peck. Laurel and Hardy finish arming the bomb, and Peck appears to come to peace with himself, since whatever happens won't be his fault. And the mission appears to be going really smoothly, until Bogey, Laurel, and Hardy start sabotaging the mission, with Bogey dropping the keys out the window and Laurel and Hardy starting to disarm the bomb right before they got to Berlin. Reagan swears that they'll be court-martialed, but everyone agrees that they made the right choice, and they turn the plane around, ending the first atomic war not with a bang, but with a whisper. The next story is Al Einstein Nazi Smasher. I don't really have to explain much, since that basically covers it. Albert Einstein, renowned theoretical physicist, as a James Bond-esque figure who fights the Nazis. The story opens up with Albert Einstein, international man of mystery, waiting to meet with a contact at a club to find out the location of a Nazi rocket launch site, when he is approached by a woman with the name Eva Braun.
Red flags here!
She gives him a train ticket, and they meet once again on the train, where they meet up and sleep together, but she disappears before he wakes up, and they hadn't gone over the rocket plans yet. He goes to look for her, but is ambushed from behind, waking up in the Nazis' hideout. Hitler plans to tie Albert to the rocket and send it to England, hoping to reduce the country to rubble, and then he plans to marry his girlfriend, Eva Braun. As Albert tries to reconcile his feelings for her with her betrayal, she betrays and shoots Hitler. She frees Albert with the help of her brothers, members of the underground who posed as Nazis, just as she posed as Hitler's girlfriend to get intel and lead Al to the base so that he could disarm and destroy the rockets. Al prepares to disarm the rockets and invites Eva on vacation with him as the story ends. The next one we'll be looking at is Unmerited Favor, aka Sword Jesus. It should be pretty self-explanatory. It's Jesus, but instead of forgiving, he goes after people with swords. But I feel like I have to look at this story because of the author, Brad Lineweaver. If that name sounds vaguely familiar, that's because he's the guy who wrote the Sliders novelization that we looked at 2 episodes ago. Let's hope he wows me as much as he did with that book. The story opens with a man named Thomas attending one of Jesus' secret meetings. A zealot addresses the crowd, saying that they need a leader who is a warrior, and then the Messiah, who needs no introduction, shows up and starts addressing his disciples. Jesus tells everyone that he needs his followers to have faith, and Thomas notices that an unsavory character, a weapons dealer, is hanging out around the area. Later, Thomas goes to another meeting, and Jesus is suspiciously without his entourage of apostles, instead looking over his followers with Mary Magdalene. Jesus silently walks over to a cart and uncovers it, revealing swords, spears, and shields, and starts distributing them. He takes them out, and the zealot comes back and starts telling them that Jesus is full of crap, but as he's shouting, the zealot is stabbed and killed, along with Jesus, and the story ends with Thomas questioning if their fight is over. The final story we'll be looking at is Death of a Dream. I couldn't do this episode without looking at one featuring Martin Luther King Jr. He's one of the biggest figures that are constantly used in alternate history stories, depicting various scenarios where he lived. In fact, there are 2 of them in this book alone. This is just the one that I liked better. The story opens up with Martin Luther King Jr. putting together a rifle in a hotel room on St. Patrick's Day 1975 in Chicago, prepping his sights for the motorcade scheduled to pass through. He's planning to assassinate the President of the United States. In this version of events, he never gave his famous I Have a Dream speech because J. Edgar Hoover put the kibosh on the civil rights movement by spreading dirty lies about King and turning everyone against him. And that snowballed into a world where the civil rights bill never passed and the entire country is still segregated, with the Senate considering a bill to deport all the black people back to Africa. King is dying of cancer, and his dying wish is to take President Daley with him, so that Daley's vice president, who is being wasted as VP but can do good as president, can take over. The story ends with King taking his shot and preparing to die. And that was Alternate Warriors, or at least my top 6 of the 30 from the book. The stories were great. Not only were the concepts good, they were executed wonderfully. If I had to choose a favorite, it would either be the Vatican outfit or the Firebringers, because they are the best 2 of the choice cuts I picked. The Vatican outfit is great for its dialogue that sounds hilarious when you imagine it coming from a man of the church, and the Firebringers is great for its attention to detail, nailing down the personalities of all the actors portrayed in it, despite the alternate timeline. Yes, the Gandhi story was a letdown, but it was more than made up for with the rest of the stories in there. The book is nearly perfect, and while some stories are a little boring and dense, the good thing about it being an anthology is that there's a ton of stories, so that there's bound to be one story that you like. The Jesus story was okay, but I really only spotlighted it because of the author. Likewise, the Martin Luther King Jr. story was good, but I felt it was a little too short. I would have loved to know more about that alternate timeline, since the story was a bit rushed. And where can you go wrong combining James Bond and Albert Einstein? So what's my final verdict? This is amazing. If you like alternate history books, especially ones where the people act really countered to their real-world counterparts, I'd pick this one up. It's phenomenal. And I'll definitely be coming back to this book eventually to look at a few more of these. Anyway, that's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more of the Literary Lair, you can hit that subscribe button. And if you have any comments or complaints about the video, you can put those in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, show it to your friends and share it around the internet. And maybe consider supporting the show on Patreon. See you next time.